There will come a day when you must walk into a room full of chaos and carry peace with you, not because the world is calm, but because you have chosen to be. You were not born calm, you learned to be. You were not handed peace, you built it moment by moment, breath by breath. Composure does not arrive like sunlight through a window. It is crafted brick by brick in the dark corners of your daily decisions. It is what you decide to carry in the face of chaos, not what the world allows you to feel. There are people walking around like ticking clocks, set off by every little thing, a word, a look, a delay, a misunderstanding, and boom, they detonate. But you must not live your life like that. You must rise above the default setting, because it is easy, too easy to lose your footing in a world that profits off your reaction. They will hand you anger wrapped in conversation, bitterness disguised as help, envy cloaked in compliments. But child, you must learn to choose calm even when you have every reason not to. Composure is not the absence of pain or pressure. It is the presence of discipline. It is a quiet understanding that nothing and no one is worth the throne of your inner kingdom. You do not hand out that kind of power. You do not allow your day to be dictated by someone else's mood, tone, or intention. You keep your spirit under your own command, not under the control of circumstance. It is a decision you make in the morning before your feet hit the floor. You tell yourself, no matter what today throws at me, I will not be moved unless I decide to move. And then you do the hard work of keeping that promise to yourself again and again. You pause when others rush. You breathe when others lash out. You observe when others overreact. Composure is choosing every time to be the still water in a raging storm. It is a posture of power, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that knows. The kind that doesn't need to explain, doesn't seek to prove, doesn't run to rescue its own image. It is choosing to meet conflict with grace, disrespect with distance, noise with silence, and adversity with poise. It is not pretending you aren't affected. It is knowing that you are and choosing to rise anyway. Choosing to carry yourself like a woman who understands the weight of her presence, who does not need to explode in order to be seen. A woman who responds with wisdom, not war. A woman who refuses to surrender her essence just to win an argument, just to be right, just to be loud for a moment and empty afterward. Composure is a private victory. It is the kind of strength no one sees but everyone feels. It is how you train your soul to be unmoved by pettiness, unfazed by drama, and untouched by the things that once had the power to unravel you. There is a stillness that lives inside you, deeper than noise, beyond reaction, untouched by the surface storms. When you live from that place, when you protect it like sacred ground, the world loses its grip on you. People can't shake what they can't touch, and they cannot touch what you refuse to place within their reach. The mistake we make is thinking we have to explain ourselves to everyone who questions us, prove ourselves to those who doubt us, or defend ourselves from those who misunderstand us. But the truth is, the more access you give to your peace, the more opportunities people have to disrupt it. There are some who don't come to understand you, they come to test you. They don't want your truth, they want your reaction. Because if they can provoke you, they feel powerful, they feel noticed, they feel in control. But what happens when you give them nothing? What happens when you look at them with the eyes of a soul that no longer dances for drama, no longer performs for acceptance, no longer bows to petty energy? You begin to realize that you don't owe access to your emotions just because someone demands them. You are not required to attend every argument you're invited to. You are not obligated to respond every time someone tries to pull you down into their confusion. If you stay grounded in who you are, if you stay centered in your own awareness, then no storm outside of you can shake the calm within you. They cannot rattle the roots you've planted deep beneath their reach. They can't disturb the peace you've worked so hard to grow. People often test boundaries not to understand them, but to break them. But when you make it clear through your stillness, through your poise, through your refusal to react, that you are not theirs to disrupt, something powerful happens. You rise above the level of their chaos, you transcend their noise, and without you playing your part, their drama has no stage. Your presence becomes a mirror. It reflects their intentions back to them. If they came with confusion, they leave confused. If they came for a battle, they walk away unarmed. You give them nothing, not anger, not explanation, not access. And in that nothing, you become everything they cannot control. You become unreachable, you become unshakable, you become a lesson. There is a power that lives in silence, a sacred space untouched by noise, where your soul can breathe without interruption. In a world that urges you to explain, to justify, to react, to shout just to be seen, silence becomes an act of defiance, of strength, of self-respect. It is not emptiness, it is fullness contained. It is not weakness, it is wisdom wrapped in stillness. Your silence is not absence, it is presence at its most focused, most alert, most dignified. When you choose silence, you are not retreating, you are reclaiming, you are drawing your energy inward, back into the well where it belongs. You stop scattering yourself across unnecessary conversations, fruitless debates, and emotional traps that only drain your spirit. You begin to understand that every word spoken costs energy, and not everyone deserves to draw from your well. You stop being so available to every opinion, every accusation, every distraction that comes knocking at your door dressed as urgency. People will mistake your silence for many things. They will call it avoidance, arrogance, even fear. But let them, for they do not understand that silence is a language far older and far wiser than any spoken word. It holds space for thought. It guards the door to your inner world. It keeps you in alignment with your values, your vision, your peace. Because when you learn to dwell in silence, you begin to hear what truly matters, not the noise of the world, but the whispers of your own soul. It is in silence that you return to yourself, that you gather your thoughts like precious stones and decide which ones are worthy of being shared. It is where you heal, where you strengthen, where you prepare. It is where you remember who you are when no one is looking, when no one is speaking into your ears, when no one is asking for pieces of you. It is where you become whole again. You begin to build a sanctuary within yourself, a quiet temple where peace lives and noise cannot enter without permission, a place where your spirit sits on a throne and does not move for chaos. And you protect it, not with walls, but with choices, not with distance, but with silence. You learn to let people wonder, let them assume, let them create stories about your silence, because your silence is not for them, it is for you. It is your refuge, your restoration, your resistance. There is a kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't flinch, doesn't chase validation in the noise of confrontation. That strength is called dignity, and dignity doesn't need to announce itself, it simply is. It does not lower itself to prove a point. It does not dance for approval or shrink for acceptance. It does not rush to defend every accusation, nor does it crumble under misinterpretation. Dignity is the quiet, unwavering posture of someone who knows who they are, and because they know, they do not beg others to see it. When you walk in dignity, you walk differently. Your steps are deliberate, not desperate. Your words are few, but they carry weight. You do not argue to be heard. You simply speak when it matters and let silence carry the rest. Because dignity is not concerned with being right in the moment. It is concerned with being whole in the long run. It is not a reaction, it is a presence. And presence speaks without needing to raise its voice. There will be moments when people will try to provoke you, pull you down into their arena of petty arguments and emotional confusion. They will throw jabs dressed as jokes, opinions disguised as concern, and confrontations masked as questions. And in those moments, your power is not in your response. It is in your restraint. It is in the way you refuse to be dragged into their storm because you've already found your calm. Dignity is choosing not to fight in every battle that calls your name. It is understanding that some invitations to argue are actually traps to diminish your light. Dignity doesn't prove, it demonstrates. Not through debate, but through discipline. Not through volume, but through consistency. It is the posture of someone who knows that truth does not always need a microphone, and strength does not always wear armor. Sometimes it wears silence. Sometimes it wears patience. Sometimes it wears nothing but the knowledge of its own worth. And that alone is enough. When you live with dignity, you understand that not every insult is an injury. Not every critic is a counselor. Not every disagreement requires your participation. You begin to choose your peace over your pride, your values over your vindication, and you begin to let people think what they want to think because their perception is not your responsibility. Your energy is no longer wasted trying to edit their version of your story. You stop chasing explanations because you are not an argument to be won. You are a truth that stands on its own. Dignity gives you the ability to walk away, not because you are weak, but because you are wise. You understand that leaving something beneath you is not a loss. It is a declaration of your standard. It is saying, this is not where I belong. This is not worth the cost of my composure. This is not worth trading my peace for a temporary victory. You begin to honor your silence, your presence, your values so deeply that nothing and no one can pull you out of alignment with them. It is not about pride, it is about principle. It is not about ego, it is about essence. Because when dignity leads, you don't follow noise, you don't chase attention, you don't engage where your spirit is not nourished. You stand rooted in your truth. You stand with grace even when disrespected. You stand with clarity even when misunderstood. You stand with peace even when war is knocking at your door. You don't bend for validation. You don't collapse to prove your humanity. You don't tremble for permission to exist in your full power. You just stand. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are your indicators, your inner signals, your spiritual compass pointing towards something that needs your attention. But while emotions are sacred, they are not sovereign. They are here to inform you, not to command you. They rise to reveal, not to rule. The mistake is not in feeling them. The mistake is in bowing to them as if they define who you are. As if they hold the keys to your behavior, your decisions, your destiny. When anger shows up, it may be telling you that a boundary has been crossed. When sadness enters, it might be speaking of something that needs to be released. When fear whispers, it could be revealing a place within you where faith has not yet been planted. But just because they arrive loud and intense doesn't mean they deserve the throne. You listen, yes, but you do not hand over the crown. The danger comes when we let emotions sit in the driver's seat, when pain drives our decisions, when fear becomes our voice, when anger becomes our mask. In those moments, we begin reacting rather than responding. We lash out instead of looking in. We let temporary waves drown the truth that is deeper, quieter, but far more lasting. Because emotions, if left unchecked, can turn moments into regrets and temporary states into permanent scars. Wisdom knows how to pause. Wisdom listens to the message the emotion brings, but responds from a place of alignment, not impulse. It says, I hear you, anger, but I will not speak from you. I feel you, fear, but I will not follow you. I acknowledge you, grief, but I will not become you. That is the work. That is the mastery. To feel deeply, but to remain anchored. To honor your feelings without letting them hijack your purpose. You must treat your emotions like visitors. Let them knock. Let them in. Sit with them. Listen to what they are trying to teach you, but don't let them unpack and move into your spirit. Don't let them rearrange the furniture of your mind. Don't let them repaint the walls of your self-worth or replace the foundation of your identity. They come to teach you something, but you must decide how much space they are allowed to occupy. It takes maturity to feel something strongly and still choose not to act on it. It takes strength to sit with an emotion without being consumed by it. It takes clarity to separate what you feel from who you are. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are not your anxiety. You are the one observing it, naming it, learning from it, and that distinction changes everything. When emotions come, ask them what they want you to learn, not what they want you to do. And when they've said what they came to say, let them go. Don't let a passing storm convince you the sky is falling. Don't let a moment of fear write the story of your life. Emotions are messengers sent to stir your awareness, to call you back to something true. But it is you, your grounded, wise, aware self, who must choose the next move. To be unbothered is not to be hardened. It is not the absence of care, nor the denial of feeling. It is not detachment born of bitterness or walls built from pain. It is presence with peace. It is the steady flame that refuses to flicker at every passing wind. It is the sacred art of knowing what deserves your spirit and what merely wants to drain it. Unbothered is not a mask for the cold. It is the robe of the wise, woven in restraint, understanding, and quiet self-respect. People will misunderstand it. They will think you don't feel, that you don't notice the slights, the gossip, the backhanded remarks, but you do. You simply no longer allow everything to enter your temple. You no longer open the doors of your soul to every disturbance that knocks. You no longer give away your peace like it's without cost, because you have come to know the value of your inner stillness, and you protect it not with force, but with discernment. Being unbothered means you have seen how easy it is to lose yourself in reaction, how quickly anger can become a distraction, how easily noise can blur the voice of wisdom within, and so you choose deliberately to not let the outside world rewrite the tone of your inner world. You walk in storms without letting the storm walk into you. You hear the noise, but you no longer answer to it. You are aware, but not absorbed, present, but not possessed. Unbothered is sacred because it is cultivated, not inherited. It is earned through the fires of misunderstanding, through the journey of choosing peace over performance. It is birthed in moments when your name was dragged and you chose not to defend it, when your worth was questioned and you didn't answer with desperation, but with silence, when your kindness was mistaken for weakness and you let the truth reveal itself in time. Because you've come to understand that reaction is expensive and not everything is worth the withdrawal. To live unbothered is to know where your power ends and where God's justice begins. It is to let go of the need to correct every false narrative. It is to walk away from the noise and sit in the sanctuary of your own knowing. It is to choose your battles with reverence for your own energy. It is to stop offering your spirit to every provocation. It is not about being cold, it's about being clear. Clear on what matters, on what endures, on what reflects your values, and what only reflects someone else's chaos. You are not numb, you are awake, fully awake to the peace that silence brings, to the elegance of non-response, to the clarity that blossoms when you are no longer ruled by the need to be understood. You no longer move from emotion, but from alignment. You no longer react to be seen. You stand already knowing who you are. And in that posture, you begin to feel the sacredness of your stillness. You realize that every time you stay grounded when the world tries to shake you, you're not hiding, you're healing. You're not avoiding, you're ascending. You're not indifferent, you're in control of what shapes your spirit and what never will.